And so we're loading wax into the car off to the gas stations. And then out of nowhere, a box of wax went missing. So we spend a few minutes just trying to find it. It turns out one of the employees had put a box of wax into the wrong car. It's okay, you know what? Minor mistake, no big deal.
Yeah.
Nope. Out of nowhere, our salon just starts screaming so loudly, threatening to fire this guy, telling him, go work at the other office. If you really want, go work at the other office if you're going to make stupid mistakes like that. He was yelling so loud that at the other end of the bay of warehouses our office was in, there were people walking around bringing stuff out to trucks. They were stopping and looking down, thinking, what in the fuck is going on over there? Like, what has this guy done to deserve this? So you'd think something like yelling at that would be like, oh, he's skimming money from the company or something. Nope, he just put a box of product into the wrong car.
All right, Daniel, you are the first person I'm pretty sure that we've talked to who worked in Canada. You worked for you worked for Wild West Road shows in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And, really there's nothing different based on your message. There's really nothing different about the operation in Canada as it is to the US, as it is to, the UK. There might be just different selling, like different products and whatnot, but it's still the same idea. So first, can you take us through what your standard day would look like, what you were selling, and that whole shtick?
Okay, yeah, sure. So typically the average day for me, just to start off with a little timeline, it would go from like 6:30 in the morning waking up, and then within 20 minutes being out of the house to catch the bus downtown to hop on a train from downtown down to the southeast, then onto another bus to take it actually to the office. And I get there usually between 8:30 and 9 in the morning. And then after that, we'd have maybe a little morning meeting. And depending on what time I got there, I would or wouldn't attend. So we'd have the little morning meeting. We go through about 30 minutes of atmosphere, and then we have a little brief morning meeting for everybody. We get our big impact speech going. And then after that, we pretty much loaded up into the cars. We went out to our places. If it was from August to mid to late October, it was car wax at gas stations and outside Canadian Tire. And from late October right up until the time I quit in January, I'd be inside selling other cleaning products inside the Canadian Tire. And then that would go on for about 8 to 10 hours, usually on just a average for how the day would go. So I'd be in there, and a good portion of this day was, we had them extra, I don't know, I can't remember what you called them in your office, but we had them as extra miling hours. So basically that equates to an excuse for unpaid overtime. Yeah. So we do that for about 8 to 10 hours selling stuff. Then depending on the day, I'd either be going back to the office to break down the day, or depending where I was in the city, I'd usually just go home because it's closer. I don't feel like going back to the southeast for 10 minutes, then going all the way back up to the north just to do that. And then on a typical day, I'd usually get home around 9:30, and I'm already so exhausted. I pretty much just walk in, maybe change into some night clothes and pass out in bed. Yeah. And then 8 hours later, I wake up and then rinse and repeat.
One of the really startling things about the message you sent was about a couple of the products that you sold. I know that you said that you were doing the wax and you were selling Whip It, which is the cleaner, but you shared a couple examples of people, people in the business, consultants who, really kind of talk down about the products, which is kind of strange because, in Smart Circle, we're supposed to always be about the client. And it's always in the client's interest, the client's best interest in which we're selling. And we're supposed to be believing in the products that we're selling. But at least about the cost of the products, it seems like the customers in the store are not getting a deal, and they're really just paying for kind of cheapo infomercial products. That's basically how I felt when I was in Smart Circle. And that seems like what you reiterate in your message as well, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Specifically, I think the example I stated in my email was that we had a national VP coming in to do a sort of run the morning impact speech.
Yeah.
And he straight up calls a shitty can of wax. I'm thinking, wait a second. This product, I've been told for the last 2 months, is this outstanding, amazing product. And I'll admit, I've seen it work. To a degree, it is a decent-ish product. I have seen it work, so I know it does work. But to hear somebody saying, who's technically above the owners and even a level of the consultants, calling one of the products this company is hawking a shitty can of wax, thinking, why would you call your own product that? Surely if it's a product you're selling or a product that, or more importantly, like a product that you own, either way, it very much would seem like you'd want to talk positively about it. You'd want to hype people up. And more specifically for Whippet, when it came to it, it wasn't necessarily on Whippet talking down on the quality of the product. It was more saying the product could do X amount of things, which I can tell you from personal experience, there was no way it could do that. Yeah. One of the things that I noticed for Whippet was I was told that, hey, Whippet can clean off salt stains from cars and whatnot. And that's a big problem in Calgary. We get a lot of snow in the winters and pretty much all year round, depending on the year. Yeah. But so I tried this and I had a really nice pair of formal shoes that I would always wear. And so I noticed they were getting a lot of salt stains from constantly running around outside in the snow. So I tried the Whippet on them. I sprayed it on, let it sitting for about a minute, wiped it off, and for the moment it looked really good. Mm-hmm. Then I went about my day. I went back an hour, looked down, and realized, oh, the salt stains are back, and not only are they back, they're worse.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, great. I like those shoes too. So
yeah. I remember when I was selling Whippet in the stores. Yeah, I think there were like 500 uses for it or something. And one of them, it was a pet deterrent and stuff like that. So if you spray it, your pet's not going to go where it's sprayed, which is a blatant lie because that's happened. I've had that happen before, and it cleans off cars, cleans off boats. It's all this nonsense. I mean, I've been out of Smart Circle for almost 7 years, and I still have 2 gallons of the concentrate because I have nothing to use it on because it's crap. Yeah. But anyway, so every interview that I do, everyone that contacts me and everyone that decides to share their story, one of the central theses of your interview is the deception that takes place in these Smart Circle offices. And this could be for anything. It could be lying about pay. It could be, like we just talked about, lying about the products, or just selling a crappy can of wax that is supposed to be really, really good for the clients. One of the examples you talked about was a leaders meeting that you were privy to, where they talked about the owner, I guess, felt like they needed to talk about why this is not a pyramid scheme, which is kind of weird because I would think many businesses would not need to ever have that meeting. If there is some kind of suspicion that it is, there's probably a good reason for that. But can you tell us about that meeting and how that kind of changed your viewpoint about what you were doing?
Yeah. So basically that meeting was in, I think it was early November, late October, somewhere around there. So I'm in this meeting, and Arsalan, the owner, he was the one going around giving the meeting at the time. And now at this time, the interesting thing was that I wasn't a leader. Despite, by the company's standards, I at that time qualified twice. I think it was either twice or I was on the verge of qualifying the second time, and I still wasn't a leader. So, but Roxy, my leader and Arsalan's assistant manager, she basically said something to the effect of, oh, if you really want to be a leader, you'll start going to these meetings. And I thought, okay, at this time I was like, okay, whatever, I'll go. And so I go to this meeting, and Arsalan's going on about how, oh yeah, we're not a pyramid scheme. Here's how you defend this business. And I remember clearly the 2 things he said was, we don't force you to hire friends and family, despite there were a few instances of people within the office culture actually advocating to go out and hire your friends and family. I know one lady, she was trying to get her boyfriend a job there. Well, ex-boyfriend now, but yeah, she was trying to get him a job there. And it didn't work out eventually, but it was also really weird how it was very encouraged by people like Roxy and Arsalan and others in the office. to actually say, hey, yeah, you should keep encouraging him to try and get employment here. The other thing he said was that there's no buy-in to work for us. Now, yeah, that's true. You don't have to buy in. You don't have to pay X amount of money to work for the company or to sell the products. You don't have to buy the products yourself. But I can tell you right now, there was a number of people in the office that would buy the products themselves if they were having a really awful day. They would just go in, buy a quick rehash of wax, or maybe buy a gallon of Whippets. In fact, I remember hearing at one point that in Edmonton, if you don't get a certain amount of sales in Edmonton, then the owners up there essentially will publicly shame you. So that's why, like, a lot of the times on our group chats, I would see reps from Edmonton, but all of a sudden, just later on in the day, coming up with $150 rehash jumps. Yeah. And I realized, oh, that's because they're basically being threatened, more or less, being threatened to be outed and shamed because they're not making the right amount of money they're supposed to. And at that time, I was thinking, you know what? Why is it, like you said, if you have to have a meeting like this where you say, my company's not a pyramid scheme, this is why my company's not a pyramid scheme, this is how you defend it, and so on.
Yeah.
If you have to have a meeting like that, your company's probably a bloody pyramid scheme.
Right.
Yeah. And this is also happening at the same time where I was told, oh yeah, we had a lot of road trips coming up. So that's where we'd go outside to a place like Lethbridge or Sylvan Lake, Red Deer, somewhere like that. And I was told, I volunteered for a couple of these things. And I realized, and I was sitting there thinking, okay, I'm going to go. And then last minute, I'm always being told, oh no, you're staying in the city. And it's one or two times like, okay, shit happens, whatever. But the worst time I remember was there was going to be a Whippet road trip going out to Regina. And the day before, Mackenzie, the owner of the other office the office was sharing space with, he said, yeah, we're going to send you on the Whippet road trip. And so I'm pretty excited. So I go home, I pack my bags, I come in the next morning at around 9 with my suitcase, expecting, we're going to leave the city within the hour. Because from Calgary to Regina, it's about a 7-hour drive out. Instead, I realized later on that it was just a ploy to get me to the office to put me to work for a day, not pay me doing inventory count. So basically, the combination of those things is essentially what happened, what got me starting to critically think about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, I do want to hit on a couple things. You said in the pyramid scheme defense meeting, which let's call it what it was.
Yeah.
You said, well, we don't hire. They said you don't hire family and friends, or you don't make family and friends join. Number one, even if you're running a pyramid scheme, you can't make anybody join. So that's number one. That's an invalid reasoning. But also number two, they do talk about this in different meetings. I have in one of my notebooks a meeting that we had about hiring family and friends or getting them into Smart Circle, about how that's the quickest way to go through your law of averages, because everything in this business is law of averages. And you might have 10 people on your team, but 7 of them are going to drop off. One of them is going to make leader, another one's not. So they view your family and friends as just numbers to get through your law of averages. So that says a lot. Number one, it definitely almost proves that it is a pyramid scheme, because even though they don't quote unquote force you to bring in family and friends, they definitely talk about it and they definitely recommend it. And that just shows you also how they view people. That's how they view the people working for them. That's how they view customers. That's how they view everybody else, is they're just numbers. And if the numbers don't translate to bigger numbers for them, they have no use for those numbers. And you talked about how the other office in Edmonton would shame and out people who don't make certain sales. I mean, that's straight up cult behavior right there. That there's nothing subtle about that. That's mind control cult behavior. And that's, all of these people, right, wanting to be interviewed for videos, writing blogs, posting on Reddit, talking about how Smart Circle is a cult and Smart Circle is a scam. If it smells like fire and it looks like fire, it probably is fire. And that's pretty much what we have here. All these different examples. So after that point, with those examples you talked about, you started to think a little bit more critically. Like, what were some of the other things you noticed, and did your work performance change at all, kind of knowing something's not right here?
Yeah, so definitely. This was at a point where I had just started on wax, and I was doing pretty well on wax, but I noticed especially after that, or not wax, Whippet, sorry.
Yeah.
This was when I started on Whippet. I know the first couple weeks before this meeting, I did really well on Whippet, and I noticed immediately after that, my Whippet sales just plummeted because it's, well, this thing is, you basically told me in this meeting that, hey, this is an MLM or a pyramid strategy, as they call it.
Pyramid
That,
strategy.
yeah,
Yeah.
not
Don't
that that
call it a
really,
scheme.
not that that
Pyramid
makes it any better, but
strategy. Yeah. Oh my
I mean, it's
God. The
not that it makes it any better.
audacity.
Yeah, I mean, not that that makes it any better, but okay. But yeah, so it's, well, what, what am I? And I start to think, am I really, working to something where I could be a business owner in the future? Because still to this day, one of the things I want to do is I want to have my own business. I want to kind of run my own show. And then this was also around the time I started thinking, why are there national consultants above? So technically, in the interview process, when I first went over the management training program, there was brand ambassador to training manager to assistant manager to owner, and that was it.
Yeah.
They didn't tell me that, oh, there's going to, above this, you can become a regional consultant, national consultant, and whatnot. Thinking, well, if you're a business owner, you're the top of the chain. There's nobody above you to consult you or anything.
Yeah.
So that really didn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, that's something that anyone who's ever worked in these companies, anyone who knows anyone in them, knows that logic does not work well with these people, right? They do not. Logical reasoning is shameful to them. It's almost like how Scientologists view psychiatry. Psychiatry is the evil of all evils, according to Scientologists. I think logical reasoning is the evil of all evils to Smart Circle and to Sidcore and Credico, because you're absolutely right. If you're the owner, which is what you're called in this business, how can you have people above you making the decisions and you feel like you actually own the business? There's just something inherently wrong with that. And I don't know at what point we get so brainwashed into believing that. But like you said, you didn't know that there were other ranks on the pyramid, right? They always stopped at owner. And that's true. Like that's how I got sucked into it. I was advertised this, in a year, you'll be a business owner, which tells me, okay, I call all the shots. I get to make all the decisions. But then I talked to all these other people, and they've been subjects of some of the videos too, who said, oh no, I got shut down. Well, how can you be shut down if you own the business? And they never really answer that. They come about it from some roundabout way. They have some answer to that question, I know, but it still doesn't make any sense, at least not in terms of logic. And, I mentioned earlier about how these owners really only view their employees, and they won't call you an employee, whatever, brand ambassador, team leader, whatever. They really view them as numbers as well. And you shared a couple instances too of your leader and, who was assistant manager, and then your owner really just lacking any type of empathy, any type of humanity skills, like not really caring about the individual at all, just the numbers, right?
Yeah, especially it was pretty much like, I call them managers now just because it just sounds better,
Yeah.
even though
Yeah.
let's be real, they're leaders, and we had to call them our owner, even though we decided 200 years ago owning people's kind of mucked up.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, but I remember that was just like, oh, you have to call them an owner, you have to call them leader. It's like, no, you're my boss. This is a job. This is supposed to be a job, but you're not.
Yeah.
You don't own me. I'm not
Right.
going to do that. And I think I mentioned in my email as well, how they were telling me, oh yeah, you have to cut people out of your life that are negative influences, also not in the business. Now, I mean, the thing that helped me get out a lot faster than I could have been was that I didn't cut these people out of my life. It's like, these have been my best friends since junior high. I've been with them through high school, post-secondary,
Mhm.
and I still hang out with them frequently today. I'm not going to just cast people aside, throw people out who I've known for years and I would still consider to be my best friends, just because some woman I've known for a couple months has said, oh, you have to get rid of them. We're the only people you need. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that.
What were some of the things? I know that can be very difficult because I talk to people and I kind of myself. lost some of my support system because of this. What were some of the things that they would tell you? Like, obviously, I'm sure some of them kind of caught on and saw what this was, all the hours you were spending at work, really making nothing on this seemingly dead end, they call it an opportunity. What were some of the things they said to you? And how were you able to accept those things, the cognitive dissonance of, well, these are what the opportunity pushers are telling me, yet this is what people I've known all my life are telling me.
Yeah. So essentially, what one of my friends was saying. So this was at a point where I got my leader's promotion. He was telling me we started talking about this before as well. He basically said, "Oh, so you basically got promoted?" I go, "Yeah, I'm a training manager now." He goes, "Oh, that's awesome. So you basically moved up one rank basically moved up a rank." I go, "Yeah, it is." So kind of, he goes, "So kind of like a pyramid scheme, right?" I go, like, "Man, please, this isn't a pyramid scheme. I would say this is not a pyramid. I'm saying at the time, this isn't a pyramid scheme. This isn't an MLM or anything." And then everyone's fighting me on. So I'm saying, "But how is this a pyramid scheme? I'm getting paid an hourly wage." That's because that's one thing that this business does a lot different than things like Primerica and Amway, for example. Those people don't pay you an hourly wage. This business, at least in Alberta, guarantees you $15 an hour for 8 hours a day, 40-hour weeks, even though you end up usually working. I ended up working 10 to 12 hours on average a day. So yeah, there's that. But yeah, that was pretty much what it was that, I'm making an hourly wage. This is something that pyramid schemes don't do. And like I said, I haven't been told, "Oh, you have to buy into this product," which is another thing pyramid schemes do. And so I was kind of able to reason with myself, like, if that makes any sense, to reason with myself a bit as to, oh, well, people are outside saying this is a pyramid scheme. I need to get out of this. And in the long run, they were right. But in the interim, I'm thinking, well, I'm making an hourly wage. I have steady work, the first steady work I'd had in a few months at that point. And more or less, I'm not forced to buy anything, although I ended up doing that a couple of times. But yeah, that was pretty much how I ended up reasoning with myself as to, like, why this is or isn't a pyramid scheme.
You continue to have suspicions, and I think it was primarily based on how much you were working and how little you were making. Because you shared in your email an instance where you were in, I think it was a leaders meeting, where you were talking about your goals, and you had a very frank response. I guess your manager, we'll call them that, your boss, was going around the room and getting everybody pumped up and getting excited. But when he got to you, you said, and I'll quote you, "The first goal," I said, "was that I wanted to work less than 70-hour weeks and then start consistently making more than $900 on a paycheck." So those are two things there that you're expected to accept. You don't make a lot of money in the field. You only make money in ownership, and you should be willing to put in the 50, 60, 70, 80-hour weeks, because you're growing, and when you become a business owner, you have to work nonstop no matter what. So you showed a horrifying, in their eyes, a horrifying lack of work ethic and a horrifying lack of positive attitude. So what happened at that point? Was there like a strained relationship going forward then?
Well, definitely going forward, and I would say there was more of a excuse me, a strained relationship starting a week or two prior.
Okay.
Because over Christmas, and there was a text to our group chat saying, "Hey," from our salon saying, "Hey, I'm only going to be running events on on Christmas Eve and Boxing Day. I will not be running events on the weekend." And so, being that I already had a bunch of family stuff and traditions planned for Christmas Eve, I'm like, okay, I'll work Boxing Day. And so I get in at like 8 a.m. on Boxing Day, and I'm talking with the guy I was going to be working with in the Canadian Tire. And then Arsalan comes up to me and essentially says, "Hey, so what is your schedule like for the next couple of days?" I go, "Well, at the moment, I have nothing going on. I'm completely open." He goes, "Okay, cool, because I need you to work events the next 3 days." Thinking, okay, but you just said you're only running events today and the 24th. And he basically twisted it to say, oh no, I mean, I'm only running events on, I'm running fewer, or no, he said, I'm running fewer events. I'm not running no events. I'm just running fewer events. I'm thinking, okay, well, why didn't you just say that? And at that point, it's 8 in the morning. I'm tired. I didn't get a good night's sleep the night. I'm thinking, I'm not, okay, I'm not, I don't feel like getting into an argument right now. So that happened, and I ended up only working. I ended up taking the day after that off, and then working the other 2 days. But it was at that point that, and I told my friends this when I got home that on Boxing Day, and I said, "Hey, here's what happened. Like, okay, I'm done at the end of January." And I said it hard out for myself was the end of January. It's like, okay, you know what? I'd like to not just have a period of unemployment right now. I'd like to actually be going in and have something of a job opportunity waiting for me. So the goal was that I was either going to hard out and quit at the end of January, or when I got a new job offer. So going into it, I was already like, okay, you know what? I don't care about this. I'm going to be at the very latest, I'm going to be gone in a month from now. So I didn't, and I'll do you one even better. So in that leaders meeting where we were sharing our goals, I can't remember if it was 2 or 3, but there was a bunch of new people that was their first day. Their first day was going to this leaders meeting where I said, hey, yeah, I'd like to work less 70-hour weeks and actually make more than $900 on a paycheck for once. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if those people saw the stop drinking the Kool-Aid then and got out as well, but I like to think I had a little bit of a hand in doing that.
Yeah. That sounds like you should have, at least if they were being aware of what was happening. So you went into a lot of detail in your message about, and I'll use your words, nearly every type of abuse you could imagine. And that was the word you used, abuse, which I would hope that for anyone watching this video, if you get a job, you wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of any type of abuse in the workplace. There's something wrong there if that is going on. So, I don't want to give anything away that you don't want to discuss. So I really just want to leave it up to you. Would you mind? You can share whatever you'd like. Can you paint kind of a clearer picture about what type of abuse you either saw or yourself experienced?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, one of the biggest forms of it was verbal, psychological, and emotional abuse, just constantly wearing you down. Oh, you're not good enough. They don't want you. We want you. They don't get it. Yada, yada, yada. And a couple more specific examples was on a number of times I would see our salon, the owners, screaming at employees in the parking lot, like usually for little small things. And one of the things was an employee asked a question, and our salon got pretty pissed because he thought, oh, the answer to this question is obvious. And another time, which actually really freaked me out, and it still does to this day, was it was coming up to the end of wax season. And so we're loading wax to the car off to the gas stations. And then out of nowhere, a box of wax went missing. So we spent a few minutes just trying to find it. It turns out one of the employees had put a box of wax into the wrong car. And so, simple mistake. You think, okay, you know what? No big deal. I mean, the guy at the same time was also suffering from a massive head cold, so his judgment's not 100%. It seems okay. Minor mistake, no big deal.
Yeah.
Nope. Out of nowhere, our salon just starts screaming so loudly, threatening to fire this guy, telling him, go work at the other office. If you really want, go work at the other office if you're going to make stupid mistakes like that. He was yelling, excuse me, he was yelling so loud that at the other end of the bay of warehouses our office was in, there were people walking around bringing stuff out to trucks. They were stopping and looking down thinking, what in the fuck is going on over there? Like, what has this guy done to deserve this? So you'd think something like yelling at that would be like, oh, he's skimming money from the company or something. Nope, he just put a box of product into the wrong car. And I was talking to, I don't think I mentioned it specifically, but I talked to him later. I said, hey, why do you let our salon talk to you like that? You should have some level of self-respect for yourself. He says, and his goal, and it was so sad hearing this. He basically said that, oh, it's okay. I work better after I get yelled at like that. Thinking, okay, then, wow. How much is this poor guy's self-worth just taking a dump at this point?
Yeah.
First off, like I would never accept. First off, for me, if somebody, a boss, coworker, anybody at all would talk to me the way Arsalan talk to this guy, I would be like, nope, you cannot talk to me like that. I am a human being. I deserve to be treated as such, just as I would treat you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, oh, nope, never mind. I guess, you know what? If he gets the results, it's worth it. No, it's not worth it. People are still human beings. Treat them as such.
Yep. Yeah, it's with that guy. Yeah, I feel for him because you don't know. Number one, you don't know, like you said, if his self-worth, his self-esteem has taken such a big hit because of actually working where he's working. But also, these businesses have a habit of seeking out people like that, people with low self-esteem, low like desperative tendencies because they need a job, and those are the people that they can kind of mold more, because those are the people that are going to latch on more strongly, right? Because they don't have a lot. And these people offer them a social outlet, maybe offer them friendships, human interaction that they might not have a lot of. So yeah, if you're offered that, as sleazy and slimy as it really is, if you peel back the layers and reveal what's actually happening here, unfortunately, that is something that people crave. I remember when I was in Smart Circle, there were times when I wanted to just stick around and talk to people because I thoroughly enjoyed working with these people. But it's just unfortunate that someone like that, like Arsalan, can just go off on someone with no respect, no humanity, and with really the kind of fervor that a cult leader does. Because if you look at some of these cult leaders too from throughout history, they're nice and very cordial and very friendly one minute, but then like a switch goes off and they're just going off on somebody. And it's, being in this business changes you. It mentally changes you. And I don't think a lot of people are aware of that. They're like, what do you mean this being in a business mentally changes you? It does. Talk to somebody who has lived through this. Go back and look at some of these other videos and listen to all these examples of how people have changed, because it does change you. And I'm sure, Daniel, you noticed a change. You noticed changes in yourself. You had mentioned, you're right around the time of New Year's. You had gotten additional support, really, from your support system you talked about, from your mom specifically, who fully supported that you get out. So what were kind of the things that led up finally to you deciding that I'm just going to walk out of here? I've had too much of this nonsense.
Yeah, so essentially it was basically the last 2 days I actually worked in the field. So the second last day I worked in the field was the day after that infamous morning meeting.
Got it.
And so the day was, it was pretty mad. It's just after New Year's, nobody's shopping. It's pretty much just a mediocre day overall. I remember in the middle of the day, I think it was around 2 or 3, Roxy called me, and we networked for like a minute or two. And then before I hung up, she said, "Oh, by the way, I know you've been thinking about quitting." And basically right there threatened to fire me for thinking about quitting. I'm thinking, I mean, if you want to get me to stay around, why would you threaten to fire me for something like that?
That sounds like a place I really want to go back to. I just got threatened to be fired by this person because I'm thinking about leaving anyway. I really want to come back the next day.
Yeah. Okay.
Gosh.
Props to you, Roxy. Wonderful. And so yeah, that happened that day. And then more specifically, the day after that, the last day I was actually in the field, I got to the Canadian Tire in the morning, and I'd already said, you know what? On the schedule, if I'm scheduled to work from 9 to 5, then I'm going to work from 9 to 5 or 10 to 6 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Because, if I'm not getting paid to work, I'm not going to work. It's just an expected thing that if you put in X amount of hours for somebody, you get X amount of money to equal the time there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I got there, and then I was supposed to be working with another guy, but he didn't show up to work. And so I got a text from Roxy telling me this. And she said, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to be working with you today." And I'm thinking, okay, after the phone call from yesterday, this woman is an extreme micromanager and a big control freak. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking, okay, well, I think I audibly said too, well, this day's going to suck. Thinking, okay, I'm not looking forward to it at that point. Then Roxy gets there, and like I predicted, the day sucked. And that it was around, I think, around 3:30, 4 in the afternoon, after another botched demo where nobody picked anything up, Roxy basically pulls me outside to her car, and she said, I can't remember verbatim what she said, but to paraphrase a bit, she basically said, so after we're all done in there, you just want to shake hands and call it there. And then basically she's prepping to fire me. And so for about an hour or so after that, it was constantly just Roxy berating me, saying, oh, I'm lazy, I don't understand the business, I'm unappreciative of the opportunity I was given, blah, 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 and on and on and on. Anytime I would say something as well, it would always be reflected back on me. So one of the things I said was, okay, I've done so much. I've done everything I could physically and mentally conceive of to drive sales, and they're still sucking. What is it then? She basically said, well, you should have plans for when your plans fail. So yeah, that is on you. And then she also went to say, oh yeah, there's at least 10,000 people that'll come through a Canadian Tire on a daily basis. I'm telling you right now, I never, aside from like Boxing Day and maybe a weekend where they had a special going on, there was no time at any point where I saw 10,000 people come through a Canadian Tire. I'm thinking to myself, how delusional are you to think this?
It's a script, because I remember we had something exactly the same for when I was in Smart Circle. It was with Sam's Clubs and Costco's, because whenever we complained, oh, there's nobody here, there's not enough people, that was the line. There are every Sam's Club, every Costco in the country sees 1,000 people at least on even their slowest day. So that's something that they're taught from the national and regional consultants. That's straight out of the script. Now, whether it's true or not, probably not. Because, I worked at a few Sam's Clubs where I know there was no shot in hell there were 1,000 people there that day, not even close. And, surprisingly enough, a couple of those ended up closing. The Sam's Clubs themselves ended up closing. So, I mean, if there were over 1,000 people there a day, why would they need to close?
Yeah.
Come on, Smart Circle. Who's right? Sam's Club corporate or your ridiculous systems? I'm probably going to believe Sam's Club corporate.
Yeah. And it even went further as well. So, like, basically the final straw was, okay, like Sunday, that's it, I'm done, I'm gone. She basically flat out told me my goals were complete shit. Like, no soft approach, just, oh, your goals are shit. She said, yeah, so our salon sent, and apparently they were shit talking me behind my back. Another thing I don't very much like and try not to do myself. But yeah, she basically said, so she had 2 people on her team. And she said one set of goals was so awesome and amazing, and the other goals was just complete shit. And she basically looks at me and says, guess whose goals were complete shit? I'm thinking, wow, okay. And then she essentially, cherry on top, was she pulls out her phone and shows me her goals, basically says, this is what your goals should look like. So she was mad at me that my goals weren't her goals, essentially. I'm thinking, wow, this is how you talk to you call yourself my friend, and this is how you're talking to me. Okay, okay. Yeah, and I basically that day came to an end, and I basically had the opportunity to go home, take the weekend off, and think about my future in this business.
Yeah.
And then that's when after that is when I had the conversation with my mom.
Yeah, I've heard from a lot of people lately that a lot more than I have in the past about people in the business basically threatening if you want to quit, and trying everything to keep you around instead of quitting. And it's kind of so bizarre to me, because the way that Smart Circle has sold itself for years is in these offices. They'll say things like, 99% of people fail, or look to the left, look to the right, half of you won't be here in a week. It's stuff like that. If that's true, if that's what you're preaching to everybody, why are you so hell-bent on keeping everybody and threatening them if they quit? And it's solely from a staffing perspective. That's all it is they want to make sure that their shows are staffed. And I really wish, if someone had the forethought, who was in Smart Circle, Sidcor Credit Co., and knew that they were going to quit and knew that they had resources to get another job or whatever, they had another job lined up, what I would do is I would go out to my event and just, do nothing. I would go home for a few hours. I'd go do whatever. Then at the end of the night, call up my owner and be like, oh yeah, I didn't sell anything today because I quit, and just leave them hanging that day. I think that's probably the best way to leave. And I really hope that somebody has the guts to do that one day, because I think that would be hilarious, is just leave them hanging dry right there.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's just me. That's like the ultimate Smart Circle quit story. And if you could string it out over like a 2 or 3 day period, that would be even better.
Yeah.
So something else you brought up right now is you had the chance to go home and think. That's another thing that we've heard from so many people, is that when you're working these 10, 12-hour days, and then like you said earlier, you go home, you crash, you have no time to think. You have no time to really critically analyze what you're doing. But you had the chance to go home. You got some good feedback from your mom, good for her, who pretty much told you, if that's how they're treating you, then, you need to get out. And, unfortunately, I've talked to a lot of people who didn't listen to parents, or who didn't listen to support systems when they said something like that. But you had the chance to actually think, and then that really brought you to an end, right? To your time in this operation.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I went home, and after telling my mom what just happened, I told my friends what had just happened as well. And so then I thought, because a week earlier was the first time I'd ever heard the name Smart Circle mentioned. I thought, well, what's Smart Circle? So I went on, looked it up, and the first thing that comes up on YouTube is the documentary. And I'd already made up my mind mostly at this point, but it was, I told my friend, it's basically like the wooden stake with the silver tip through the heart, pretty much. So I took the weekend off, and I don't know what it's like in the States, but up here, if you get in Alberta and in Canada, if you get fired from a job, it's a little easier to collect EI on employment insurance than it is if you quit. So I basically walked in hoping that I would be shown a little mercy and just be fired right off the bat. Roxy instead essentially doesn't really say a word to me. She just walks right by me to the office, and because I was already going in to pick my paycheck up as well. So pretty much, I basically walked in, got my paycheck, and said, "Yeah, I quit. I've thought about it. I don't like the hours. I'm tired of how you treat me, and I'm really just tired of just not getting anywhere. I quit." Then I came back a couple weeks after that to pick up my final paycheck, and then that was that. I never saw any of them again. Yeah. And I think the last day I saw Roxy, me and my dad were going to pick something up at the farmer's market, and it was nearby the office, so we stopped by there. We get there, and I get out. Roxy's standing at the back entrance because the front door was never unlocked. It was always 90% of the time it was always locked. So she's standing at the warehouse entrance. I get out of the car, start walking towards her. She goes, "Hey, Daniel." I go, "Hey, Roxy." She goes, "How you doing?" I go, "I'm doing great." She goes, "Really? Awesome." I go, "Yeah, you want to know why?" She goes, "Why?" "Because today is the last day I ever have to see this office."
Yes. Yes.
Then we pretty much walk in. She gives me my check, doesn't even so much as look at me. I'm just like, "Cool, okay, bye." That's left.
Yeah. So that makes a little bit more sense to me, I think, about how why she was threatening to fire you. Because I think it maybe in her mind, if you hear that, you're more likely to quit, and then you won't get unemployment, or at least it'll be more difficult to get unemployment insurance. So that, I think, to me at least, that makes a little bit more sense about why she would do that. But yeah, I love that, saying that flaunting your happiness, flaunting your whatever success, because you don't have to ever be there again. And I don't know Roxy. I mean, you worked with her, but you still, it's difficult to know somebody. In the back of her mind, she might realize, shit, I'm stuck. I have to put up this front, but I'm not making any money. I'm not being successful. Daniel, on the other hand, he's looking great. He's looking happy. He doesn't have to do this Smart Circle garbage anymore. Yet here I am stuck in this, and I've sold whatever I have to this fake opportunity, and who knows if she'll ever get out.
I mean, I'm not so sure. I know a few other people who have gotten out, and they're happier now. But Roxy, no, she's completely sold, because she told me that, so I came in for a summer, did wax, I left, and came back the next summer, saying, I want to do this. This is my end goal. And I think she's now an owner, and her company is Zingaro Marketing. it was explained to me once, but it's Zingaro is essentially some Latin word that was translated through Greek and then into ancient Celtic and then back to Latin, and it means success. But I don't even know if that's true. I don't know if that's true. I don't have the energy to look it up either.
No, and it's not worth looking up. It's useless information at this point. We're never going to know that. Do you know if Arslan is still active in the business?
Oh yeah, he is 100% active. So actually, and in Alberta, there's a registry where you have to register your corporation. So all the like Wild West, Elevated, Zingaro, Ace. There's another one, Simplified Marketing Solutions is a big one as well. I think there's another one or two that are there. But if you go onto that, his office, Wild West, is essentially is supposed to be stricken off the record. I can't remember exactly what it says, but I don't think it's active anymore. His office active anymore. But when I was going back through trying to find photos and some materials for you to help with this video, I saw that he's actually a regional consultant now. So yeah, he sold his soul to the business a long time ago as well. Ace Management actually is. Ace Management and Simplified Marketing Solutions are the only two in Alberta that actually have websites that are completely just over and everything. But yeah, and so for people outside of like the general area in and around Calgary, seeing on a resume, you worked for a company called Wild West Roadshows. That would immediately sound like, oh, this is a fake company.
Yeah.
But no, in Calgary, so every year, aside from last year, we have the Stampede. So if it's, Wild West or Stampede or Rodeo, this or whatever, it's more easy to say, oh, so you're associated with the Stampede. Mm-hmm. And actually, I went to a job. I'm back in school now, but I went to a job interview a few months ago. And the lady was like, okay, so tell me about Wild West. And she was basically assuming, oh, we're some way related to the Stampede.
Yeah. And
I said, oh, yeah, so it's just a direct marketing firm. And I just gave her really general details about it. She goes, oh, so you're not associated with Stampede? I go, yeah. And she gave me this look, kind of like she thought it was, oh, I just put it on there to look my resume to look good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's another interesting thing was that I got called to be interviewed by Elevated Concepts. I think I did my interview through Elevated Concepts as well, but I ended up working for Wild West because both companies share the same office space.